Okay, today we're going to look at the incredible story of Dr. Mary Neal, who was a doctor and a scientist in a kayaking accident, died for 30 minutes underwater, went to heaven, and we're going to listen to what she saw. This is from After Death movie, which I still haven't seen. Ugh. But I'm very interested in these after death stories, near death experiences. So let's listen to this. This is one that you don't want to skip over. This is going to be powerful, and I'll pause occasionally throughout for copyright reasons, but I'll link the full video in the description if you want to watch it uninterrupted. Here we go.
And I was just thinking about, your experience in South America as you're kayaking and suddenly you need God and everything changes. Can you share a bit about that story? Yes.
Yes. I went over a waterfall at my kayak and was pinned or stuck under 8 to 10 feet of water. And I didn't have any options. I mean, I was going to drown. And it would be very easy to assume that I reached out toward God only because I didn't have any options. And I don't know how to explain it, but I actually did still have an option. I had a choice to turn toward God or turn away. And that's always our choice. And I made a very, very active choice to ask that God's will be done.
Interesting. So even as she's dying, I have never heard this before, she had a choice to turn to God and ask for his will to be done or turn away. And I've heard hundreds of near-death experience and after-death experiences. Never heard anyone say it like that. So that is very interesting.
That circumstance, regardless of what it meant. And it was the first time, despite saying the Lord's Prayer, I don't know, hundreds of times, thousands of times in my life, that it actually meant it. God, your will be done on earth in my life.
Wow.
Period. Not on my timetable, not the way I wanted it to be done. But truly, it was the first time very actively I gave up trying to control or be the one in charge of my life. And that started this incredible and wonderful adventure and an experience that I could never have imagined in my wildest imagination. I mean, like so many people, I'd never really thought about death. Actually, at that point in my life, I had had patients who had died. I had certainly been exposed to death. But at that point in my life, I had not personally known anyone who died. I didn't know a grandparent or a parent or a sibling or a friend who had died. And really, I had a great life. I hadn't really faced many struggles. And I think that none of us really think about our faith. None of us have our faith challenged until we face struggle, and especially when we face loss.
Dr. Neal, as you were being held in the arms of Jesus, God showed you the truth of everything you just said by giving you this life review that allowed you to see painful things that had happened to you, but also to develop this understanding of and empathy and the ripple effect of how humans hurt one another. Tell us a little bit more about that life review you experienced.
And the interesting thing is thousands of people have had after-death or near-death experiences have a life review where they feel like their life flashed before their eyes and they see everything they did, good or bad, in one review. And so these stories they confirm each other. They're all similar in themselves of how they get that life review, which is very interesting.
This life review was looking at the most wounding experiences of my life and being re-immersed in them from a point of understanding. I understood everything about me and my life story, my backstory that had brought me to that moment in time. And I also understood the backstory and life story of everyone else involved. And what I discovered is that it wasn't a matter of forgiveness. Because again, in our culture, we don't understand forgiveness. It's always a two-part thing. Like, I forgive you, but I don't ever want to see you again. Or I forgive you, but I'm never going to forget. But God's forgiveness isn't that. It really is as far as the East is from the West. It's complete, it's absolute. And I think it comes out of the fact that God knows us, knows our story. And what I realized in knowing everyone's story in these wounding situations is that I didn't have to forgive. There just wasn't room for anger or bitterness or shame or any of those destructive emotions, because where God's love is present, there's just no room. And so it was really pretty remarkable, because it's an experience that, even though we may not think about it, it's an experience that every one of us has had many times in our life. we can look back and see many times where either we have been misjudged or we have misjudged other people. And what we realize is that when you understand the backstory, you don't have those destructive emotions. You have empathy, you have sympathy, you have some other form.
If you're a little bit losing track, what she's saying is during her life review and traumatic moments or experiences or people hurt her, she saw why things happen the way they happen. So why somebody hurt her the way they hurt her, and it all made sense to her.
Love.
Which is
And
so
as God was giving you that perspective, being held in the arms of Jesus, having this life review, he wanted to give you even more perspective. And suddenly you were up above your body.
And this is happening while she's dead for 30 minutes.
And you could see your body there, and your friends trying to resuscitate you. And God began to bring you up into heaven. Would you share a bit more about that journey?
It was awesome. Yes, my spirit, my essence, myself, the true me, whatever you want to call it, did leave my body and rise up and out of the water. And I have to tell you, I never had the experience of being alive and then dead, or conscious and then unconscious. I had this experience of being alive and then more alive.
Wow.
Conscious and then more.
She said she was alive and then more alive. I heard one guy say when he died, it was like he slipped into eternity instantly. Like you take a shoe off. It was just so seamless and instant. It wasn't like you go to sleep, then you wake up and you're in heaven. It was just an instant transition.
More conscious. All of my senses were intensified.
Wow.
1,000-fold. And it was different in terms of time and dimension, so that I could experience all of eternity in each moment. I could experience, it's like experiencing 1,000 realities all at the same time, yet independently. And I know that doesn't make sense, but there's sort of no way really to describe it. And I was greeted by a group of, people, spirits, beings, people who had known me and loved me as long as I have existed. And people always ask, do I recognize them?
I had Don Piper on my show, who was dead for 90 minutes and went to heaven. And he saw the first thing in heaven was all the people that impacted him, he knew, met him at the gates of heaven. So similar to her story. Amazing.
I did not, because again, at that point in my life, I had not personally known anyone who died. But I knew that these were people who had been important in my life story. Perhaps a grandparent or great-grandparent who died before I was born. And I knew they were so overjoyed, absolutely overjoyed to welcome me home.
That's
and yes,
crazy to meet your great-great-great-great-great-grandfather in heaven. Think about that. I never thought about that until right now. Like, you meet your great-grandfather, your great-great-great-grandmother, somebody in heaven that is related to you from, 5-10 generations back. That's incredible.
Me along this incredibly beautiful path that to me was just exploding with color and flowers and the aromas of flowers, which is what speaks beauty to my soul. I'm convinced that God presents to each of us when we die the experience that will make us feel completely known, completely loved, and will speak beauty into our souls. And so they took me down this incredible path. And
so basically, when I get to heaven, Jesus is going to play pickleball with me. I mean, I'm down.
Toward this sort of great dome structure of sorts. And when we got to the end, I was there for what felt like many, many hours, and had this incredible understanding of really the divine order of the universe, how it all works, how there can be billions of us on the planet, but we are each individually known and loved as though we're the only ones. And then how it works, in terms of interconnectedness. I mean, we are all part of one, whether it's humans, animals, the natural world. We are God's creations, and we are entirely and perfectly intertwined and interconnected. And then I was kicked out.
Listen, if I die, I tell my family, don't try to bring me back. Don't pray me back. That's crazy to go to heaven and then come back to earth.
Yeah, and then, you asked to stay, and God said,
I was told it wasn't my time. I had more work to do on earth, and that I had to go back to my body. And when I objected, I was given a laundry list of things I had yet to do. And many people ask, oh, well, it was a premonition or a thought. And I was like, no, I'm a very concrete thinking person. And so it was basically a laundry list. It was like, okay, here's your list. So get back there and get to work. And I might add
So
that
she asked to stay. God told her, no, you have more work to do. It's not your time.
nothing on this list was something I felt excited to do. Nothing on this list felt
Wow.
like something I was qualified to do, had time to do, wanted to do, etc. Which makes sense again, because the fact is none of us change or learn or grow when things are easy. I have to say, I mean, there were a lot of things I questioned on this list. Certainly the most difficult was being told about the coming and unexpected death of my oldest son, who at the time was a healthy 9-year-old. And there was no reason to think that he would die young. And when I asked the obvious question about that, which is, why him, why my son, I was immediately returned to my life review, in which I had been shown again and again and again the truth in God's promise that there really is a plan for each one of our lives that's one of hope, and the world, I might add.
So if you're tracking the list of things she had to do, one of the things the Lord told her before she came back was her son was going to die, I believe, young. This is a short video. She has a long testimony, but that's kind of where it's at right here if you're tracking.
And that beauty really does come of all things. And I was reminded that it is always a matter of trust. And with that, then I was taken back to my body and reunited.
Wow. And Dr. Neal, some years later, you did lose your son prematurely in a car accident.
Yeah.
Wow. So God told her she'd lose her son early and then gave her a life review, and then she lost her son in a car accident. That's so sad.
Hit by a car and killed. Yes.
Oh.
And that experience in heaven, did that give you strength during the loss of your son?
Well,
I've never heard anybody say God told them their child was going to die early when they went to heaven, and then it happened.
I would say that, first of all, my experience with spiritual truth and my absolute trust of God's promises is the only way that I could wake up every day wondering if that was going to be the day.
Wow.
And it was 10 years later. So that's a lot of days to wake up wondering if that's the day. And I will fully acknowledge that my trust in God's promises did not protect me from loss, and it did not protect me from the emotional devastation of losing my son. He and I were very close. I loved him dearly. I would give anything to have him back. Like any parent, I'd give my own life for sure to have him back. But I will tell you that because of my trust in God's promises, even on my most sorrowful day, I simultaneously was able to experience incredible gratitude and joy. Because I think joy is found in the moment, and I think joy is experienced each day and each moment.
Wow.
When you're able to consciously make this choice to trust God's promises.
And Dr.
So I'm going to link the full thing. They talk about the movie After Death. What an incredible testimony, an incredible story. Interesting that she went to heaven and the Lord said your son would die at a young age, and then 10 years later he died at, I believe, age 19, if that lines up. Here's the bottom line. Every single one of us are going to stand before God in judgment. Whether you're a believer or a non-believer, it is appointed for man to die once, then comes judgment. We have to make sure that we are always ready. We never know when we're going to slip into eternity. We never know when we're going to slip into the afterlife. So we have to always be ready for that life review, always be ready for that judgment. And I don't know about you, but hearing these stories makes me want to go to heaven. Paul said, I want to go to heaven, but I'm here for your sake. And so in the same way God gave her a list of things to do when she got back to her body, we all have a list of things to do. We might not know it exactly, but every single one of us have a list of things to do. Maybe there's trials in that list. Maybe there's tribulations in that list. Like she said, I didn't want to do these things, but we need to deny ourselves. That's what the gospel teaches. Deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow him. So let's do that list. Let's not wait until we have a near-death experience or die, and then God says, go back to your body before we start doing the list. Let's do what God's called us to do. Let's make disciples. Let's preach the gospel, and let's be ready for judgment day. Let's live every day like it's our last. We're live Monday and Tuesday. We have hundreds of videos in our live tab. Go check out preaching. You can partner with us down below in the description. Helps us out a lot. And we'll see you guys in the next video. God bless.